Hi, everybody. My name is Michelle Pagan, and I'm glad you could join us to watch this video. I'm here to announce something that's very interesting for the state of Vermont. We're launching the first ever search for Vermont schoolgirl samplers, and we're doing this for the Bennington Museum. And here's the outline of what I'm going to be talking about just for about the next maybe 15 to 20 minutes. I'm going to describe what is this Vermont initiative for the Vermont sampler search. I'm going to give you a little bit of information about samplers in case you're not familiar with them. We're going to describe what is the sampler archive that this project is a part of. And we're going to talk about the need that we need volunteers and how you can help, how you can sign up to be one of our volunteers. Okay, so I wanted to tell you, how did this Vermont Sampler Search start? Well, it started when I was doing some research for the Bennington Museum for a sampler webinar that we made about their sampler collection. And in reviewing all of the literature and books that are out there, I came across Betty Ring's 2-volume set of books called Girlhood Embroidery, Samplers and Pictorial Needlework, covering the years 1650 to 1850. And I noticed in this 2-volume, very large set of books, there wasn't not one Vermont sampler was included. And so I said to myself, we're going to have to change this. And so I set about meeting the people who could make that happen. And so I'm here to tell you how it goes. So here's a little bit of background about what schoolgirl embroideries are all about. Producing a sampler was an essential part of female education in both Europe and America from the 17th to the 19th centuries. And here you can see 3 very beautiful samplers. Now, these are all done by young girls. These are not produced by established, mature, married women. These were produced by young girls. Very often they did have a teacher to produce something like this. These are from other institutions, other states. We don't have anything like this yet discovered as part of the Vermont Sampler Search, but we hope to discover beautiful pieces like this. Here are 6 more, again, designed to show you some other very, very beautiful examples of schoolgirl embroidery. Some of them are actually family records, like this one down here in the bottom left corner, where the girl actually stitched a lot of her family personal genealogy. The one over here on the right is most likely this is called a marking sampler, when the girl was demonstrating that she knew her ABCs and that she could read. So we do have samplers this beautiful in some of the large Bennington, Vermont museums, but these happen to be all from other states. So as I just said, not all samplers were meant to be totally beautiful, tacked onto the wall of the parlor of the girl's home. They were more functional, and these were called marking samplers. And this showed that, yes, the girl knew her ABCs. Yes, she could read. And believe it or not, yes, she was ready for marriage and ready to raise children who would also be equally, if not more, literate as she was. So these are both from Vermont. The one on the right is from the Dorset Historical Society, and the marking sampler on the left is from the Norwich, Vermont Historical Society. These are a couple of samplers that we already know that we have from the Vermont chapter of the DAR. And I thought you might like to see this example of Vermont character, shall we say, where these 2 separate samplers both had the same quotation: industry and perseverance are sure indications of female worth. I'm sure we're going to be discovering many more examples of these character building pieces of text that are also sometimes woven or stitched into these market samplers. They're not beautiful, but they're very good indications of Vermont girlhood character. So, all right, so let's talk about now this new thing. The previous samplers that I showed you have already been found. Now we're talking about collaborating with the Sampler Archive project, which is already in existence, and it is a nationwide search for girlhood samplers. So this is announcing something new. This is a statewide effort to locate, photograph, and document all American samplers to be found anywhere in Vermont, both in public collections like the Bennington Museums and private collections like individual family homes. So the scope of this project, here's the general outline of what this project is all about. We anticipate that it's going to take 3 or 4 years to complete. The pilot project is going to be at the Bennington Museum, the first site ever to host a search for Vermont samplers anywhere in the state will be at the Bennington Museum. Their Sampler ID day is November 18th and 19th. That's a Friday and a Saturday. There will be more next year, and we're taking a region by region approach. We're starting in the southwest corner, then we'll be going up to the Shelburne Museum in the northwest corner. We're going to the southeast and then the northeast regions of Vermont. We think we're going to be able to do all of that all in 2023. The project leader is Dr. Lynn Anderson out in the state of Oregon. I'm Michelle Pagan. I'm taking care of the southern part of the state, and Ellen Thompson, who lives in Middlebury, will be taking care of the north part of the state. The only staff that's being paid is the professional photographer who needs to be hired on a contract basis. And we need lots and lots of volunteers, perhaps 8 to 10 people who will get advanced training to help us out during these Sampler ID days. So we've started already behind the scenes. We've already started working with public collections like at the Bennington Museum, like at the Vermont Historical Society, like at the Old Stone House, like at the Shelburne Museum, because they have electronic records. They have all of their collections already online on their computer database. And so they have already started working behind the scenes to digitize photographs of all of their individual samplers. And Sampler ID days have already been completed both in the states of Rhode Island and in Delaware. And these are a couple of pieces of public relations that went out to advertise that they needed volunteers in those 2 states. So we already know from the national survey in connection with the Sampler Consortium that there are more than 300 Vermont samplers have been already identified across the nation from all 14 counties. For example, at the DAR Museum in Washington, D.C., you can search their database, and there are 9 individual samplers already found in the collection in Washington, D.C. for the DAR Museum. Here's a close-up of that family genealogy, very nice family genealogy sampler that was produced by Julia Kidder from Grafton, Vermont. And the information to the right is the registrarial information that they have all about that sampler and Julia Kidder's family at the DAR Museum in Washington, D.C. So let's talk about what is this Vermont sampler search all about? So this is a Vermont-wide effort now, just focusing on Vermont, an effort to locate, to professionally photograph, and to document all American samplers and related embroideries held in the public and private home collections of Vermont. And this team, of which I'm just one of the people, is working with our state's museums, historical societies, historic homes, and private collectors to find all girlhood samplers that are presently in the state of Vermont. And this photo here happens to be one made by Amanda Jewell in 1816 that we know already exists in the Shelburne Museum collection. The goal is to photograph and document all American samplers found in Vermont. In other words, you don't have to know if your sampler was actually made in Vermont. If you live in Vermont and you have a sampler, we want to know about it. For example, this picture to the right is owned by Mr. and Mrs. Leeds Brewer. They are a Connecticut family. This sampler was actually made in 1766 by a great-great-great-grandmother of theirs down in Stonington, Connecticut. But they now live in Vermont. And so we're including this in the search for Vermont samplers. It wasn't made in Vermont, but it now resides in Vermont. So that's the kind of sampler we're also looking for. You don't have to know if your sampler was made in Vermont. If any kind of sampler, we want to see. So let's now look at this online database that we're going to be putting together. After we find all of these samplers, after we photograph them all, after we take down all the information that the owners have about their sampler, it's going to be added to this nationwide effort called the samplerarchive.org. If you go to Google and type in samplerarchive.org, this is the first page that will come up saying, welcome to the Sampler Archive. And right now on the very first page, I can't show you the whole page, but based on the very first page of the Sampler Archive right now is announcing this Vermont statewide sampler initiative. And it's the welcome is written by our director, Dr. Lynn Anderson. So once you click on to the next page of the Sampler Archive, you can search for lots of different items. You can search for the contributors. You can search for the contributors being which museum contributed their collections, which state. Was it from Delaware? Was it from Rhode Island? You can search for the maker, etc. So this is the first page that I typed in. I was looking for the DAR Museum's collection. We have a DAR chapter here in Vermont, several in fact, right? But I wanted to see what the DAR Museum in Washington had for their sampler collection. You can also look for any particular kind of object if you want to see, oh, I just want to look at family records because I'm doing genealogy research for my family. And I want to see how many samplers from Providence, Rhode Island, from the DAR Museum, from Delaware, might have a bit of genealogy information that would be helpful to my search. You can also search for memorials and mourning embroideries. These are very, very beautiful pieces of needlework that certainly are far distance from the marking samplers that we looked at earlier. And these were made to commemorate someone's death in the family. And these are a couple of very beautiful examples from the Winterthur Museum in Delaware, as well as the DAR Museum. So let's look at a particular Vermont sampler that was found in the Rhode Island search. When they searched for their samplers all over the state of Rhode Island, one popped up from Vermont, and this was made by Martha Slocum in the year 1801. She actually was born in Newport County, Rhode Island, but she made it while she was a girl living in Moncton, Addison County, Vermont. And it's now owned by the Fenimore Art Museum, who gave it to the Rhode Island Historical Society. And after you look at the picture very close up, as we are right now, you can then go and search down at the bottom of each item. You can look for the physical characteristics, the maker, history, etc. And under physical characteristics, you can read more about what the sampler is made of. What kind of needlework was used? How large is it? Is it framed? Are there any blocks of text? In other words, are there some personal information? Is there a block of quotation from the Bible? Or is there some piece of poetry, perhaps? So very, very interesting information was stitched onto many of these samplers by these very young girls. You can also search for the maker history. If you're especially looking for the genealogy of the maker, maybe you're trying to track down, was this girl, this Martha Slocum, if that's your last name too, maybe you want to find out, was she actually a great-great-great-grandmother of mine? So you can search for just maker history if to see what's the biographical information that is available regarding that sampler. You can look for information such as the object history. Who owned it previously? How did it come to this particular museum's collection? Has there been any conservation work done restoring the sampler to make it look like it does? Has it been mentioned in a book previously? And that does happen. Has it been used in an exhibition anywhere, perhaps at another museum? All very interesting information. So again, although this initiative focuses on Vermont samplers, we're interested in documenting all American samplers residing in Vermont. This piece on the right is owned by a private collector. Miss Sue Washburn in Dorset has this particular sampler in her collection. The goal ultimately is that this initiative hopes to have a special exhibition at the end of the search after 3 or 4 years, we anticipate, and possibly publish a book on made in Vermont samplers and related girlhood embroideries. This is another piece which we know is already in Vermont. It was made in Dorchester, Massachusetts by Lucy Ann Hill in the year 1848. And it's in the private collection of Miss Melissa Jordan here in Vermont. So let's talk about finally how you can help. Okay, what are we going to need from you to help make this sampler initiative work? We need you to help communicate that it's going on. Tell all of your friends, your neighbors, your extended family, especially. You may have extended family that left Vermont, believe it or not. They chose to leave Vermont and move west. Maybe they're out in California, but they have a Vermont sampler there. That would be very exciting to know about. We need you to volunteer. We're going to need volunteers in Bennington in particular, November 18th and 19th, to help handle the samplers, to take down the information from the owners as they bring them in. We're going to have a professional photographer on hand, but we do need volunteers sitting side by side to take the information from the owners as they come in with their samplers. And we will be offering training ahead of time, either the day before or the morning of, to give you the support that you need. We need you to attend. We need you to come with your antique samplers. Maybe you have a neighbor who has a sampler, but they just don't get around as much as they used to, but they have a sampler that you could bring in for them. And then finally, if you can't participate in any other way, we do need some monetary donations if you can, because the professional photographer, of course, does need to be paid for his services. All the other work is being done by volunteers. This is an example of the promotional flyer that is already made up that you can perhaps download from the Bennington Museum website and pass it around to your family members, to neighbors that you know, to antique dealers. If there is an antique dealer that you know close by to where you live, bring this into them, because of course dealers dealers see lots of stuff, don't they? And they do see lots of samplers come in the door to them. So please help to distribute the flyer if you can, advertising this event. So again, the day of the event, November 18th and 19th at the Bennington Museum, we could use your help with doing the publicity, setting up that day, cleaning up at the end of the day. We will need volunteers to help with the registration of the donors who are walking into the door, of registering how many samplers they're each bringing in. We'll need some help with traffic management. We will need people writing, taking handwritten notes, as well as writing onto the laptop the description of the sampler, measuring the samplers, looking at the types of stitches that are there, and just generally assisting in all different ways. We'll need volunteers to record the genealogy information that perhaps the sampler owners are able to tell us, and also doing data entry. And some of that can even be done after the fact. So if you're not available that day, please contact us and let us know that you'd love to help. You just can't be there that day, and we'll figure out a way for you to help. And then finally, there will need to be afterwards reviewing the photographs that have been taken and helping to fill in any missing data and some more research, so that maybe we will be able to help out the sampler owners to help fill in the blanks in terms of what do we know, what can we help them find out, even more information about their samplers. So here's an example of a volunteer training day in progress in Rhode Island. And finally, here's the map of Vermont to show you that the southern part of the state, Bennington, Rutland, Windsor, Windham, and Washington counties, I will be handling. The MP donates Michelle Pagan, that's me. The northern part of the state is being handled by my colleague, Ellen Thompson, who lives in Middlebury. And those are our email addresses right there. You can get a hold of me at mpp1@comcast.net. And I thank you very much for tuning in and watching this little promo for the first ever Vermont Sampler ID Day. Thank you. Hope to see you soon.